Hi, you've tuned in to Radio Northern Beaches, your Listen Local station, right here on the Northern Beaches of Sydney. You can find us on your radio dial at 88.7 and 90.3 FM. Can't get to a radio? No worries. You can always stream our program live from anywhere in the world at rnb.org.au. And for listening on your own schedule, our podcasts are available globally at rnbpodcast.com.au. So be sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Now, here is our latest podcast. So welcome to you guys. We have in the studio Peter Jacob, Pete Helson and Hugh Moran. And now, fellas, I went to the Shack the other night and watched you perform, and I had a ball. And the audience were really having so much fun. We wanted you to keep going, but you had to stop, which was such a shame. And that's a good effect to have on an audience, I believe. Hugh, first of all, we'll start with you. Where does the name Shruti Brothers come from?
We went through a few names for the band, but eventually it became Shruti Brothers because in quite a few of the songs that we play, we use this little instrument from India called a Shruti box. Now, for those of you listening to the radio can't see that I'm holding one, it's about the size of a bit larger than the old yellow pages, and on one side of this little box, it's like a little briefcase, it's got little keyhole covers over notes in a chromatic line, similar to a piano keyboard, but when you pull the little keyhole cover apart, it opens a hole behind, like a keyhole, to let the air out. And it's got 1 octave's worth of notes, this particular Shruti box. And then it's got a little bellows on both sides. And you just place it on your knee at an angle, and I'll give you a little burst. And that's playing 3 notes I've set up for a drone in the key of G. Because this is in the key of G, I can do 3 notes. Usually in a drone, you would use 2 notes, the first and the fifth of the scale. So if you're used to Scottish music, most music, ethnic music around the world will use a drone, they'll use the first and the fifth, or sometimes just 1 note under the music. And the way this instrument came to be was that in the 1800s, the missionaries from Europe came to India to proselytise the Hindu, and they brought with them the European harmonium, which is a larger instrument, exactly the same, machinery as a Shruti box, so to speak. It's playing reeds. So it's just like an accordion or a harmonica, exactly the same principle, air vibrating reeds which are tuned. And the Indians just loved the sound of the European harmonium. I'm not sure whether they loved the religious instruction, but they took it to heart, and they invented the Indian harmonium, which is a box about the size of a small chest. It's got a tiny miniaturised piano keyboard along the top rim on one side. It's got bellows on the back, and the player will sit cross-legged, usually on the floor, pumping the bellows with one hand, usually the left hand if they're right-handed, playing the keyboard with the right. And they also have stops. Stops is a word for organ banks of pipes. So you pull a stop out on a pipe organ and a whole row of pipes become active. And so they have different stops doing things like making, when you play a note, it might play an octave, 2 notes, when you pull a certain stop. And that also plays drones. Now, because a lot of Indian wedding music, the band is travelling from village to village to play the music for the weddings. And the Indian harmonium is portable, but some bright spark thought, well, a lot of the songs we're doing, like the Shruti Brothers, only use drones, so we only need a very small item to produce the drone. And so they invented this little briefcase type version which just does drones. It doesn't have a piano keyboard, and you set up the drones in whatever key you want. Usually some of the songs in our repertoire, I'm just setting up 2 note drones, first and the fifth. In this case, because it's in the song, so to speak, is in the key of G, I'm using a G, a D and a G, because I have 1 octave worth. If I cut off one of them,
it's got a very unique sound, hasn't it?
Yeah. And that bubbles away underneath the song. I don't think there's any songs where I use it the whole way through a song, but say in the introduction or in a solo and so on. So we're creating other textures on top, or even vocal lines and so on over the top.
Yeah.
But Shruti is an old Sanskrit word, and it means music or the sound of that which is heard. It's got a sort of rubbery meaning, and we thought, well, that's an appropriate word. It's a bit unusual. It's a bit hard to say, but
Yeah, I had to get my tongue around it.
well, the first time we turned up, they announced us at the shack were the Shruti Brothers.
Oh my goodness! Now I
We
wouldn't
found
have got
that
it
very
that
amusing.
long. So, how did you fellows all meet, and what instruments do you play, and how did you get together as a band? And as I said, you play a huge amount of instruments, which not only is entertaining on the show with the different instruments you all play. That was fascinating.
Yeah, well, three of us all played in different bands over the years. And so during COVID, I thought, well, let's try this particular trio out. Because the other two groups had disbanded for various reasons. So I thought, okay, let's keep it going. So as an experiment, I rang Hugh and Peter up and said, let's give it a go. And from the first day, we thought, yep, this will work.
It does work. It works fantastically on stage, and the different instruments.
So
as well.
part of the idea of forming it was the other bands were highly amplified. I was getting past that. I didn't really want to do any more damage to my hearing. Didn't want to lug a lot of heavy gear. And I noticed a lot of audiences, when you're doing a rock and roll show, they didn't like it either. They can't talk.
Exactly. That's one big issue when people
I thought,
are playing.
let's keep it a little bit quieter. And I came from a background of world music and orchestral music, so I had a lot of instruments to use that weren't being used. So I thought, let's use these in conjunction with keyboards and strings, and multiple strings and multiple sounds coming from the keyboards. So there's no bass guitar in this ensemble. So it's really Hugh and I who are providing most of the bottom end.
So name the instruments and which ones you each play.
Peter Jacob, I play percussion. So instruments from Asia, the Middle East, all over the joint. And Hugh's keyboards.
Yep.
And
Shruti.
And Peter's strings.
Yeah. So altogether, you make an absolutely fantastic band.
When we got together early COVID, it was because gigs dried up and so on. It was a formula where we could still play music and have fun and stay in touch with musicians. When Pete rang up and said, are you interested in having a little trio? We'd meet every few weekends or so, say every 4 weeks, once a month maybe, on a Sunday afternoon or something at his place. And the formula was cake.
Oh, cake. What sort of cake?
Armenian nutmeg cake.
Really?
Which Peter bakes.
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
And so we'd arrive, we'd practice some new songs, we'd yak about what gossip, muso gossip and whatever, and then we'd have a morning tea we'd break for lunch, and we all bring the same certain things for lunch, and Pete's got a lovely place with a sort of jungle outside with waterfall, and we sit there and imagine that we're friends of Tarzan, and then we have a nice lunch, and the water dragons come up from the waterfall.
Oh, I love water
and
dragons.
We feed them, and they just sit by the table and, with their mouths open, basically. And then we go back inside and practice more songs, and then it's Armenian nut cake time and another cup of tea, and we go outside again. And then we come back and we polish off the last of the songs that we intended to practice. So we do that once a month, and it was our musical way. And we didn't have to have a rat test before the rehearsal, which is good because there was no one with a uniform on supervising. No. So this is 3 years of COVID where that was our music.
Another thing that we like to do is marrying disparate tunes together to form a medley. So we might put in, Led Zeppelin with a Celtic piece, with a Steve Earle piece, for example. So we love doing things like that. So you're playing bits of pieces of different songs that normally would never be paired together. And
what about you, Pete? How do you feel about that sort of, how do you cope with that sort of thing on a guitar?
Well, sometimes it's incredibly challenging. And as we performed on the Shack, and we did do that. We actually did the medley that Peter's referring to. We started off with a Celtic tune, and I actually have to. It takes a little while because I'm switching instruments sometimes to go from one style to quite an intricate finger picking type style guitar, and after about a minute you kind of like you've reset. And then we may be in that particular part of the medley for just a few minutes, and then we're into quite an aggressive Led Zeppelin acoustic segment, and then we'll go into something completely different. And I think what is working as a formula there is we're keeping the audience engaged because they go, oh, I know this, but we don't do it for another 3 or 4 minutes. It's almost like just a prelude or a sneak trailer of this particular song, and then we may, and it's quite theatrical. I think this is holding the audience's interest is very
it definitely
important
does
to us.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Things are constantly changing on stage, and that's the whole idea, to keep people entertained.
I think the other thing I'd say is it's quite different from rehearsing or preparing with other bands or musical projects that I'm involved in. It's a very civilized and relaxed setup, as we've said, that's centered around food and talking and Armenian nutmeg cake, which is great. And instead of going into a traditional musical rehearsal studio, and out of that, literally, and you actually saw this at the performance at the Shack, we had the idea, or Hugh, to his credit, had the idea of rewriting one of the songs and the lyrics of that, which was
I love that. I'm going to pull that out and play it.
Happy Together, and it's a true story, as per the segment. We didn't see those lyrics until 11 o'clock on the Saturday morning of the performance, and which was and we like to do those sort of things, sort of like comical. Not necessarily political, but in this particular case, it was like geopolitical commentary on.
Well, you can't help it. He gives you plenty of
yes.
of ammunition, doesn't he?
And I think the audience appreciated it. And look, I think that is a direction that we'll look to do more of, and whether it's satire and amusement, I think,
That was fun.
But take a particular news topic or something that's in discussion at the moment, and then maybe weave it as the opportunity arises into a song.
That's great.
Whereas the Unhappy Together lyrics we probably won't do again because it's old news.
It may have moved on by then, but I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also do house concerts.
House concerts, explain.
Well, when we got our repertoire together initially, we thought, well, how are we going to present ourselves? A club won't look at us because it's so different, maybe. So we went to people's. People said, well, we're having a party. And so we said, okay, we're going to put on a concert in the setting of a private house. So people brought food and drink, but the stipulation was that when the band plays, no talking, sit and listen. So it's a bit like the Shack, but in someone's private residence.
Okay.
So we've done a few of those now, and they've worked really, really well.
And no pay.
Yeah.
So just done for free is...
Well, a show is worth 10 rehearsals,
Yes.
at least.
Or maybe you should start neighbourhood shows. Do it off the street in the neighbourhood.
There are house concerts that bands do where they charge $10 on the door or something, and it's in someone's home. But we haven't done that. We've done a few, but we haven't. They've all just been with friends and friends of friends.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about the Shack the other night was that was one of the first shows we've done to an audience that didn't know us from Adam. And
you certainly made a big impression.
Well, that's and I was hoping we would, and as you say, it did happen. So I was very happy with the outcome because it was an unknown, really. Yeah.
Well, it was a great experience for both you and for the audience.
I would just add, if you want to see what we look like before the Northern Beaches Festival, to go to the Shack Facebook page, because there's 3 or 4. And their Instagram page, 3 or 4 videos of some of the songs that we played on that particular night to get an idea.
Cool.
Of it.
So that would be a better representation than the one little video you have on.
That was actually the video demo, which is I think a segment of 8 or so songs. That was actually at one of our sort of home. There was probably about 30, 40 people there, a home recital.
2 years ago, yes.
Yeah, and I think I would also just add in that is that some of the feedback that we get from the audiences are that they've clearly enjoyed the show and the music, but that they're not necessarily wanting to go into a pub or go all the way into town to hear loud music in a venue where there's lots of drinking and lots of noise. I mean, there are plenty of bands, and I'm in bands that play in those venues as well. And so I think there is a segment of an audience that do want that more sit-down and recital type format. And the Magnifique that we're hoping to, I think we're scheduled maybe to play that in 2026. So Steve, the organiser, I believe, was at the Shack.
He was. I didn't get a chance to speak to him. But
so
he
we look
there.
forward to playing at those sort of events where there is more of a discerning, and I would probably say, I don't think it would be fair to say more mature or audience. My nephew is a professional musician, and he plays mainly down in the Bondi area, and he does corporate. But it's a totally different audience. And you see the setup with Peter's got a very wide range of and very ornate percussion instruments from all around the world. That's very different from what you would see in a pub.
Exactly. As I said, the showmanship of all the instruments and the way you use them, and it's fascinating watching, let alone listening. How does someone contact you if they want you to do a show for them?
Peter Jacob, Jacob. So my email address is pjacob@optusnet.com.au. That would be the best way to contact me. And also, visit the YouTube, put the Shruti Brothers into the YouTube search engine and we'll come up, and you could even message me via that.
Oh, and you've got some, as well as the Shack.
That's
website
right.
For the Shack.
The Shack.
Or the Facebook for the Shack.
Yep.
Which one?
It's both on Facebook and Instagram. I think they've put 3 or 4 videos from the Shack performance up on Facebook and 1 or 2 on their Instagram page.
Now tell us about the music you actually play, and I noticed that you play covers, but you play them very differently.
Yep. Again, that's part of the idea. Yeah.
Shall I speak to that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it evolved, and as Peter said earlier, it was right at the start of the pandemic, and we deliberately took a decision early on not to just do the standard cover songs. We've all been in cover bands, and I'm still in several cover bands, but to reinterpret them and to put our own spin and flavour on that with the instruments that we were bringing into the band. And as we worked through, inevitably, I think we would have started off with a few Beatles songs, but rather than just do it as per the record, we said, well, we have got this plethora of different percussion instruments, and then through Hugh's keyboards, we can actually open up everything from bagpipes to brass instruments to bass. And then what I've been doing is I deliberately use different guitars, or I use a mandolin and ukulele, sometimes banjo, different stringed instruments to provide different textures and flavors to that. And as we work through a song, an example that we may have taken, that we open the set 1 with, is Get Back by the Beatles. So everybody knows the original tune and how that starts, but we actually do start it with a Shruti box in that particular song, and Peter will start it with a gong announcing the start of the show. But instead of doing it in the traditional rhythm, we added more of a sort of an Eastern European, almost gypsy jazz type style to it.
And it was great. We've actually got a recording of that, and I will be playing some of the songs that you played on that night for the program.
Yeah, and quite often when we get together to work out arrangements, we've got it down within like 2 or 3 different, we go, okay, should we do it this style, should we do it this style? And it seems to be quite a natural and fast evolving process within that. So it's been a lot of fun. And as I mentioned earlier, I think what we would deliberately try to do is steer away from, we don't depart too far from the original, because we want the audience and the listeners to be able to recognise the song.
Yeah, it was easily recognisable, but it was so good.
But a different take on it.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, okay, I haven't heard that but done that way before. There is one song we didn't play at the Shack the other night, but an example would be, okay, well, what would happen if, hypothetical situation, if Buddy Holly had actually travelled to Cairo, Egypt, and written the song Not Fade Away, and done it in a more of a sort of an Egyptian type style and rhythm. And with Hugh and Peter's instrumentation, they're able to bring in that sort of African Egyptian type style rhythms. But then Hugh can, and I think as you heard us do Walk Like an Egyptian, we do that also.
Oh, that was wonderful.
We do that in a sort of like also in a sort of an Middle Eastern type style, and an Egyptian type style, lending respect to the title of the song. So,
as I said, it was absolutely an awesome night. We really enjoyed it. So, what are your backgrounds? So, how did you actually meet?
Computer dating, wasn't it? It was a disaster, really. I had no idea he was going to
Well,
turn up to
you two were in Sirocco.
Yeah, well, I was a member of Sirocco for nearly 20 years, which is a world music group that started up in the early 80s. So that's where I got a lot of my instruments, collected them over the years. And we got Hugh on board, I think, in the 90s.
No,
2000s. Yeah, early 2000s.
So how did you get together? Where did you meet?
Through Damien, really.
Through Damien,
yeah, a fellow musician,
guitar playing friend.
Right.
And, I had a duo called the Cooker Brothers for about 14 years, and we sort of got pushed into and then became the main Jewish band in Sydney. Neither of us being Jewish, but a lot of work and fear went into learning to sing in Hebrew and Yiddish, and
That's amazing.
it was fantastic. I wouldn't be playing now if it hadn't have happened. And I was doing Rodney Adler's son's bar mitzvah at the Regent Hotel, and I needed an extra player, so I got Pete in on percussion, because it's easy to meld in percussion on a band that's already going, because if you're particularly a good musician, they can just
fit in well.
Fit in and not sound like they've never heard the band before.
Well, that was convenient.
And yes, and so I met him. That was the first time we met, I think. Or maybe I met you before through Damien. But
that was the first time.
First gig.
Yeah.
And I might have got you one another time.
Yeah.
And then the Cooker Brothers broke up at the end of the 90s, and I formed another band called the Promised Band, which was everything from me solo to a 9-piece. And I was getting lots of different musicians playing big Jewish functions, weddings and bar mitzvahs and so on. And also corporate things punctuated through the year. But, the Jewish community sort of swallowed me up, because I had bookings 8 years ahead.
Oh, my gosh,
and so,
you were popular.
Unlike most bands would be lucky to have bookings 3 months ahead, I had to have multiple diaries and so on. And so they tended to blot out any
other direction.
But and we did the same thing with the Greeks. The Greek community, we thought we were going to be rich, because the Greek weddings are on Friday nights and Saturday nights mostly, and the Jewish weddings are on Sundays.
Well, that worked out conveniently, but did it work?
It to some extent, but the Greek community is much better served by their own bands than the Jewish community. So the Jewish community, all the hot musicians are off studying medicine and aren't so worried about being the best function band in town. Whereas the Greek bands were terrific. In fact, we pilfered a really good bouzouki player named George Siros from one of the main Greek bands who was breaking up, and we had a trio to do the Greek functions, and we thought it was marvellous, because we were doing all the Greek balls at the Wentworth, Greek young matrons, St Spiridon ball, Catherian ball, endless, and it was a great formula, because 400 or 500 people in the Wentworth ballroom. We'd be sitting out at the table, Greek band, sort of 8-piece Greek band, be up on stage doing the Greek set. They'd finish, we'd go up and do the pop set or the dinner music set, and then we just alternate. And we got to know all the Greek musicians that way, which was terrific.
Amazing.
But when we learnt our Greek repertoire with George, that was a big mistake, because we had to play all night.
Oh,
because they saved money by not employing a Greek band. And so we'd do the Greek set, and then George would sit down and we'd have to play pop music for 45 minutes.
So how did Pete and you guys meet?
Through the same musician we mentioned earlier, Damien Robison. So we were in a band together, and as I said earlier...
So which band were you in together?
Ballet was called.
With Keith as well.
With Keith, that's right, yes. So those two bands kind of fell apart towards COVID starting up, and that's, as I said earlier, this is how I decided that I'd get members of both the other two bands together and form Shruti Brothers, and that's what happened.
Well, it worked really well.
Yeah.
What are your plans for the future, and what sort of gigs do you like to do and you want to get?
Gigs where people listen, as opposed to talk and drink over you.
I know, that is a big issue. You go there and you can't hear the band. Everybody's talking and drinking. I like to go and sit and listen, and that's why I like the Shack, because you have to be quiet and listen to what's going on. And I really enjoy that. And I think a lot of people do. Okay, what are your plans going forward?
It's more of a recital band. So there are other bands, for example, The Tempted and Radio Northern Beaches.
Yes, I know The Tempted.
Very own Joe Wakeman, the amazing Joe Wakeman, who actually has sung, along with Claire, who's in The Tempted as well, with the Shruti Brothers.
Oh, excellent.
At one gig that we played. Northern Beaches music scene, if you break it down, you're either playing the pubs, Bucketees. Am I allowed to mention places?
Yes, you may.
So Bucketees, Conroy, Manly Boat Shed, and these are going to be venues that people will be wanting to drink and get up and dance. And not that we've played gigs and functions that people do get up and dance to with the Shruti Brothers, but it's more of I would say more of a discerning audience that want to come and sit and listen to the music, and I think the Shack and events such as the Manly Fig are very well suited for that, because you've got people that do want to listen to good live music. But there is an opportunity as well if you do want to get up and we do play.
Yes, we ended up getting up and dancing towards the end.
And we've played several private parties and functions where we deliberately have oriented the set and the choice of material to more sort of dancey material with the Shruti Brothers. But later in the year we should be hopefully at the Northern Beaches Music Festival in Narrabeen, which is in November.
Yep, we'll be talking about that a little later and advertising.
That's right, and I think Radio Northern Beaches obviously be involved in that. And in between them, we're working on new material and going to be having some other more recital functions as well in between.
Your next event, is it the festival, or have you got something in between?
I think the only one that's firm booked at the moment is the festival.
Okay, November. So if you want to get the Shruti Brothers, you have to get in before the festival if you want to book them. You have a YouTube. How do people find that?
Type in Shruti Brothers. Yeah.
Okay. I have to admit it's not as fantastic as you in person. What you did on stage was just absolutely wonderful. But what I really found was it wasn't just the music. You are a show in yourselves, and the instruments keep people fascinated.
Thank you.
Well, that goes back to the original idea of when we started was, when I go and see a live band, be it national or international, after 3 songs, I'm pretty bored. So the idea was and it doesn't matter how good they are, I'm usually pretty bored. So it's got to be visually entertaining, it's got to be orally entertaining, and the members of the band, all members of the band, have got to communicate with the audience, rather than just the one standard front person.
You succeeded in that very, very well. It's been great talking to you, and we will be, because Radio Northern Beaches is very involved in the festival, we'll be telling people about the festival, and it'll be great to see you guys there. So listeners, keep an ear out for the festival and when it's on. I'll give you dates and etc. in the future. And thanks, guys, for coming in and talking to us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Christy.
The Northern Beaches Festival will be held on Saturday the 1st of November and Sunday the 2nd of November, and our Shruti band will be performing on Saturday at 2:15pm and on Saturday again at 5pm, so get along and see them perform. And if you'd like to hear some of the Shruti band music, I will be putting out a program in the near future with this interview and the music as well. So keep an eye on the Radio Northern Beaches Facebook for the upcoming program.
Australia, the lucky country. We've got meat pies. We've got the world's best beer. But most importantly, top of the list, we've got Radio Northern Beaches 88.7, 90.3. Now hitting the entire world on www.rnb.org.au.